All right, we have another amazing show today. Our guest is a former TMZ reporter, a lifelong wrestling fan, and current CEO of ProWrestlingSheet.com. But most importantly, somebody who is making wrestling journalism a real thing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ryan Satin. Ryan, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Can't complain. Just busy, you know.
Definitely.
Now, Ryan, as we mentioned, you're a huge wrestling fan. Do you remember that moment that got you hooked on wrestling?
My dad works in the entertainment industry, and when I was really young, what first kind of got me interested in it as a young kid was he worked for USA on a TV show called Rhonda Shear Up All Night, and Rhonda Shear got to do like some interviews it was one of the WrestleManias. I forget which one that was out here when I was young, and my dad got to do some stuff at it. And I got to walk through the locker room, and it was just so weird seeing all these characters, and like they were hanging out with each other, but then some were in character, but some weren't. And then we got to go to, I guess what would be known now as like the gorilla position, but we got to kind of hang out in that area for a second. And I got to talk to these two wrestlers, my brother and I didn't know who they were at the time, but they were so nice to me. And they were just like, how's your day going? Like, are you guys enjoying the show? Like, great, thank you so much. And then they were like, hey, you know what? Our music just started. We got to go. It was really nice meeting you. We're like, thank you. They kick the door in, and they start walking out all angrily and yelling at the crowd, all mean. And it was actually Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna. And they were like the nicest people ever, even though they looked all scary, and they were the coolest people. And I was like, wow, this place is awesome. This is really cool. And so I started watching then, but it was much more casually then because my dad's always been a fan. But the time I really got hooked was when Mick Foley got thrown off the Hell in a Cell. It was like a neighbor showed my brother and I on a VHS, like something crazy that had just happened on pay-per-view. And I remember my brother and I were just like, holy crap, we got to start watching this. And we watched it ever since.
Sure, wow. All right. Well, did you have any fan favorites growing up? I mean, was there one or two guys that, were your go-to guys watching it back then?
I was always a big DX fan. My brother was like a big Rock fan, and I was always like the DX fan. Like Stone Cold and DX were just like, I love those guys back in the day. I mean, DX to me was just like, it was just like so in your face and like nothing I had ever actually seen before on television, especially because I was so young. And it was just all the stuff they were doing, from the suckets to the sexual innuendos to the just awesome matches. Like, man, like I remember watching Triple H versus The Rock at SummerSlam, the Highway to Hell one, and a ladder match, and just being like, this is the best, And people love to give Triple H crap, but I just remember as a kid, I was the biggest Triple H fan when he was in DX until he stabbed us all in the back and turned corporate.
There you go.
Now, obviously, you were in the minority as a wrestling fan at TMZ. Do you remember the first wrestling story that you pitched to Harvey?
Well, I don't remember that. I just remember the first wrestling story that I worked on, because I wasn't even on the news desk yet, but I was on the TV show at the time. But I was just like a PA and production assistant for the TV show, and I was on the show as well, and everyone knew I liked wrestling. And when Umaga passed away, they kind of came to me and were like, hey, do you know about any of this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I know about all this stuff,
Yeah.
And I helped out a little bit, like, sending them tweets of what wrestlers were saying, like, rest in pieces and, RIPs and things like that. And started, like, hitting up, like, a few wrestlers I wanted to talk to. It was kind of my first time I had really kind of made a few, like, times where I reached out to a few wrestlers and things of that nature to kind of try and get a story or something on, like, them being, doing some sort of tribute to Umaga. And then after that, it was shortly after that when I finally got an opportunity to work on the news desk as a PA on the news desk. So then I'm trying to remember what the very first wrestling story that I actually pitched to them was. I don't know. I just remember that when I first started, the only time they really cared about any wrestling stories was when it was like when someone passed away, or if someone got suspended for a drug test or something along those lines. And then I just remember that, they always stressed at TMZ to all the newer people that you should, you should latch on to some sort of niche thing that is popular and own that that niche. You know, if you want to work on that niche, then you should own that niche and become the best at it, and get as many contacts as possible and know as many people as possible. And at the time, I was new. I was on the TV show, but I was still kind of new to all this, so I just started reaching out to just people I wanted to get to know in the industry that I thought would be good contacts in the future, and just kind of explaining that I was just getting started. And I just made a few contacts here and there, and that person led me to that person, and that person led me to that person, and then eventually I just remember that I started pitching a few stories here and there, and they didn't really care about them. They were like, no one really cares about this, and I would just fight really hard for the story to go up, and I'm very persuasive. so eventually they would listen to me, and they would see how well the stories would do in traffic, and so they finally, as I moved up in rank at TMZ, my stories would do just as well in regards to wrestling, until finally they stopped giving me any pushback. And then, as you saw, there was tons of wrestling stories after that on TMZ.
Sure, yeah, definitely. Now, I recently watched a video of you speaking with a heated Ultimate Warrior. Were there a lot of these moments when speaking with wrestlers that maybe we, the viewers, didn't really get to see?
There's definitely been a few. There's been a couple, yeah, but that's the worst one. That was, but to be fair, like the people in the past who've maybe been unhappy with me or a story I've done or things, or maybe just where I worked and things of that nature, like, I understood most of the time, but that one was just out of control because I hadn't done anything in that situation. And if you watch the video, it's hard to kind of tell what he's talking about in the beginning, but he's like yelling at me. Like when he's like, "Where's your shit on me? Where's your shit on me?" Like what he's talking about is not a TMZ story. It started off by him saying to me he's mad in general, and he's talking about how he's mad that about the Ultimate Warrior DVD that got put out back in the day, because this is when he was still not really cool with WWE, and he was talking about the Ultimate Warrior DVD because at the time he had put out these videos where he was putting Hulk Hogan on blast, and so he was going off on me because he was just in general angry that WWE had put out this DVD and now he's doing this, and he's like, well, where's your shit on me in regards to that? Like he's saying, like, where's your shit on me, talking back to WWE on what they did. And I'm like, hey man, and I was so new there, so I'm like, hey man, like I'm with you. That was when I was still fighting to get wrestling stories up. So I was like, hey man, like I get it. And he did not care. Like as you see in the video, he goes off on me, and yeah, it was but it's definitely an experience. I mean, not many people can say they had the Ultimate Warrior angrily yelling at them face to face in full makeup and jacket and all,
Sure, definitely. Now, there came a time too when TMZ seemed to be breaking a lot of WWE news specifically, and now even ESPN has kind of gotten on the bandwagon recently. Was that something WWE reached out to TMZ for, or was it the opposite? Or, I mean, all in all, do you think from TMZ to ESPN to any other news station, do you think that, the mainstream news is kind of making wrestling more, I don't know, I want to say legit in a way? I don't know if that makes sense.
Most of those, I would say 99% of those stories you're referring to were just stories that I worked on. So it wasn't, it was... obviously I can't talk about my sources or where I get information from or things of that nature, but my whole thing when I was at TMZ, that was my goal was, I felt like there was all these wrestlers who to millions of people are huge celebrities, and that I was at a place that was more mainstream, and I wanted to help these guys have a mainstream avenue, wrestlers that I know to be super famous that I feel like for the most part get ignored in bigger media platforms and stuff like that. So that was more of a me thing. I was on a mission to get as much, coverage for them as possible because I love wrestling and I feel like they're just as big of celebrities as, Lindsay Lohan, right?
Yeah.
Does it make you feel vindicated that TMZ is continuing to run breaking wrestling news after you left, such as the most recent bombshell about Rusev and Lana?
100,000%. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I mean, like I was saying, the first story I started was Umaga, and they really only cared because he passed away. to go from that to, TMZ breaking a big story like the Lana and Rusev thing, changing storylines because, storylines being changed because of it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It just makes me happy that, I wasn't there to do that, and that they do care now, that I've been able to help them realize that it's something that they should be paying attention to. And I hope more mainstream media does the same thing,
Mm-hmm. So on today's show, we're talking about the most famous wrestling storylines that became real. Do you have any of those that come to mind off the top of your head?
My favorite one would just be Edge and Lita and Matt Hardy, just because, when you're a kid, things are so much cooler, and I just remember all that playing out with, with Matt Hardy going to the indie scene for a minute and then coming back and jumping the railing and all that kind of stuff. And that was like the only time, one of the times I thought Matt Hardy was going to win the world title. Like in my head, I was a huge Hardy Boys fan and stuff. So definitely that one, because to me, it's the one that people still point back to because it was just so real and so raw of everything that happened. And they just put it out there, which I feel like in today's society, if a similar situation were to happen, they never would put it out there on TV like that.
No, yeah, definitely. So what are your thoughts, too, on mainstream wrestling today? Because there's a lot of stuff going around to where, the ratings are falling, WWE needs to do something with their show, or, I don't know. Do you feel like things are just falling apart with the 3 hours that they're giving, at least WWE in their point of view?
Well, there's two answers to that. In regards to the ratings, I think people pay way too much attention to ratings. That's why on my website, ProWrestlingSheet.com, I have not once, I do not ever plan to do ratings reports or anything like that, just strictly news, because it's like, I just feel like times are changing. If I'm a big TV guy too, because like I was saying, my dad, I grew up kind of in the entertainment industry, so I'm a big TV guy as well, and I've seen how, I think even recently, I know that Fox, I'm pretty sure it was Fox, that said they're not even paying attention to their ratings anymore, that they're disregarding the ratings system, and that they're only paying attention to the TV3s and the TV5s and things of that nature. And I know more people are trying to push for that to happen, and it's just, things are changing. I know so many people that watch TV strictly by downloading the shows on torrent sites, and lots of people, and there's millions of people doing that, and so, and the other crazy part is that such a large percentage of people think that when they're at home and they're watching TV, that it affects the ratings, which is crazy to me, that they think that they don't realize that that's not the case, that because of the Nielsen rate, because everything's based off of Nielsen's rating system, there's only a select few boxes in the entire country that are set up for the Nielsen. So, people think that a certain person them at home watching matters when it doesn't, And so,
sure, yeah.
So I think way too many people put stress on the ratings in general, that, I think things are changing. Times are different, and in the next few years, I'm guessing all the Raws are going to be on the WWE Network, available the next morning, and it's going to be a whole different game. It's going to be a whole different situation. So yes, when it comes to ratings, I don't think it matters, but yeah, it does feel like Raw is long, but that's not changing either, and. I'm one of the most positive wrestling fans for the most part. I don't tend to get too nitpicky about things, but it's been a little weak lately. It's not the best thing that it's tough to watch sometimes for 3 hours, but the 3 hours isn't going anywhere. But I wouldn't say it's falling apart necessarily. Sure. I actually, I kind of, as much as I was bummed about Sheamus winning the title, I kind of liked his whole promo on Raw when he was out there with New Day. And I kind of I know he looks kind of stupid with the mohawk, but the slicked back mohawk looked kind of cool. He looked kind of punk with his suit and the slicked back mohawk. I was kind of into it. So, I don't know. They're always two steps ahead of us. I always feel like, as much as we always want to feel like we're angry about it, we're not going anywhere. We're all going to be along for the ride,
That's right. Now, also, you are also well known to frequent many wrestling events in California, including PWG. What are your thoughts on the independent wrestling scene today?
It seems vibrant right now. There's so much going on. I can't even keep up with everything going on in California sometimes. It's tough, but it seems great right now. I mean, there's a lot of places for people to work. I mean, if someone like Sami Callihan is comfortable leaving NXT to go back to the Indies, then I mean, and he's not the only one who's done it. There was like CJ Parker who recently did it, and then there's people there's people making money, from the Indies and stuff that are, the Young Bucks. They're signing exclusive deals with ROH so that they don't have to work all the Indies anymore. I mean, the Indies are alive and well. I mean, PWG is my favorite place to watch wrestling, and nothing tops PWG. But that, I'm very biased since I'm at all those shows, But it's great. I think the Indies are great right now.
For someone who watches a lot of wrestling, you have to have some favorites. Who are some of your current favorite wrestlers today?
I love Zack Sabre Jr. That guy's awesome. Roderick Strong, Chris Hero, Ricochet. I mean, like, those guys right there alone are just like they're just some of my favorite wrestlers in general. I mean, their work just blows me away every time I watch them in PWG. I'm also a huge fan of Speedball Mike Bailey. My girlfriend and I are big fans of his. He's for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he's just like the little engine that could with like a karate gi on, and it's awesome. But I would say those are my favorite guys right now. I mean, I recently went to my first Lucha Underground taping, and I know that they're serious about spoilers, so I can't say too much. But it was so cool seeing Pentagon Jr. and Drago and or Drago, whatever the hell his name is, and all those guys. I mean, I saw him at Battle of Los Angeles as well, but I mean, Marty Scurll. I mean, also, when I was talking about the Indies, not even out here, but with Progress in the UK, and there's ICW selling out huge shows and stuff. I mean, there's so much talent. It's hard for me. It's a very difficult question for you to ask, for me to answer my favorite wrestler right now. It's tough.
Sure, definitely. You just brought up Lucha Underground. I got a question about that. To where, what are your thoughts about seasons in wrestling? Granted, like WWE and a lot of these guys, they're wrestling pretty much the whole year. And, there's no downtime, there's no off time. But with Lucha Underground, they filmed a season, you watch it, they're off for a few months, now they came back, filming season 2. What are your thoughts about, could this, I don't know, one day be the new thing of just filming seasons? Or
I mean, I highly doubt that it'll ever be the new norm, but it's not a bad concept at all. I mean, if it's better if there's like a longer term deal in place, like there's going to be a second season, and like this one, for example, with Lucha Underground, a lot of those guys were just up in the air about the situation, not knowing if there was going to be a second season or not. So, well, at least if it's something where they know there's going to be a second season and they can actually relax for those few months, then yeah, absolutely, it's a great concept, but I don't see that being something WWE ever adopts.
Yeah, can't stop the machine for what they do, but
no, definitely, a publicly traded company can't have time off,
Yeah, exactly. And now, obviously, a fan of your caliber remembers a little show called WWE Confidential.
Yep.
If given the opportunity, would you like to have a show like that on maybe the WWE Network one day? Could we see? With
me on it, or
with
just
you on it? Yeah, your own. Yeah.
I mean, I would love something like that, dude. If there's any producers from WWE Network listening, yeah, hit me up, dude.
Now, after leaving TMZ, you decided to start ProWrestlingSheet.com. What was your motivation for starting this website?
Well, after leaving TMZ, because the whole time I was at TMZ, I was working on wrestling stories, but I was also working on non-wrestling stories. And the last last year and a half, 2 years that I was there, I just was really I enjoyed getting wrestling stories the most. It made me the happiest. It was the most fulfilling stories to get, because I'm so connected with with so many different fans, and I'm friends with so many of them, and I just like the community. They're very supportive of everything, of people, of other wrestling fans in general and stuff. And so, when I left, while trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my next step in life, I just felt like, I had so many people reaching out to me with stories still, and people hitting me up saying like, oh, we missed getting senior stories on sites and stuff like that. And, it was just, I would go and I'd read other stories, and honestly, like, there was a lot of clickbait out there where just like, and it's not so, it was more just like, and I use that term loosely, but it was like a lot of times I would be on Twitter and stuff and I'd be wanting to read wrestling news.
Yeah.
And when I was at TMZ and I wanted to read wrestling news, if I saw something, I could, you know, if it was questionable where it was coming from, I could go work on it and find out if it was actually true or not. Well, then when I wasn't at TMZ anymore, it was like, well, I can't go do that. And I just was like reading so many stories and they were questionable things. Like I'd click a link on Twitter and it would say, you know, what did Stephanie McMahon get Vince for his birthday? And I would click the link and it would not say in the link what Stephanie McMahon got Vince for his birthday. And it would drive me crazy. And so eventually, you know, I was like, I should just start my own website, you know, and I started, like, you know, I'd never built a website before, you know, even though I worked on the website for 6 years, I'd never actually made a website before. I'd worked on, I knew how to navigate it all, but it was all a new thing for me. So I taught myself how to build the website, taught myself how to do a bunch of different things, you know, and started working on things behind the scenes and taught myself how to record, edit a podcast, and as you know, it's not easy to do it first. And it's definitely when you're like, why are these mics all recording each other? Or like, or like, you know, I say the word like too much, which I've done here today, and I tried my best not to say all the time, but I'm from California, so I can't help it. And but yeah, so you know, it was just a big learning process, you know. But I really wanted to. My main motivation behind it was just me personally. I wanted to go look at a website where I didn't have to pay for it and I could just read stories, not something where a bunch of things were bundled together. And I wanted to read stuff that I could share on Facebook with my friends, you know. And a lot of times the way a lot of the websites were formatted, you didn't really cater to that, you know, to the Twitter and to the social media market of things. And I personally am a big social media person, so I wanted to be able to have a place where I could share the stories, where I could work on the stories that people actually care about, and where I didn't have to just only work on things where it was about a former WWE star or someone who was actually on TV at the moment, you know, where I know that there's a huge following for wrestling fans, and I mainly just wanted to give people a place where they could read stuff, a place where they could read news that they could trust. You know, I don't put stuff up that I haven't fact-checked myself, stuff that I don't feel, you know, I wish that everybody could see how much I stress before I post a story on my website. I mean, I'm like, fact check the crap out of every little thing that I put up because I'm like, I don't want to put something up that's, you know, that's not true, you know? And so it's, you know, I've already had people try and lie to me about stories and get me to do fake stories. And I'm like, no, dude, that's not what I'm about. It's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give people a place where they can read honest news stories, where I'm not trying to trick anybody. You know, I'm not trying to take your money. I'm just trying to give you accurate wrestling news.
That's great. I mean, once again, I stress to our listeners too, ProWrestlingSheet.com. Please head there, check it out. Besides ProWrestlingSheet.com, though, can you let us know Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff? Let everybody know about it.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Ryan Satin on all social medias, you know, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And you can follow my website at Wrestling Sheet for exclusive updates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, same thing, Wrestling Sheet. And you can check out my podcast, which is every Friday. It's available on all podcast platforms. It's called The Sheet Podcast. And yeah, we do a new episode every Friday where we basically discuss all the stories that we've posted on the website for the week. And just kind of go into more detail about each thing. You know, I'll talk about a few things that I wasn't able to fit in the full story just because it didn't fit. So, you know, you can listen to that and get exclusive news. You know, like this week we're going to talk about Sami Callihan and how he asked for his release because he wanted to reinvent himself and, you know, reinvent his image and show people that he was one of the best wrestlers on the planet. And, you know, we're going to be talking about how Rocky Romero was guest training in the WWE Performance Center this week in the exclusive story that we broke about it on our website. And same for Dewey Foley. It wasn't our exclusive story, but we got a few details on it, on Mick Foley's son being hired as a writing assistant for WWE Creative. And the other exclusive story, last one that we broke, about Brad Maddox, his new name that he is going to be using on the independent scene, Mad Braddox. So check it out.
Definitely. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Please come back anytime, and we wish you nothing but success with ProWrestlingSheet.com.
Thank you very much. It was great to be on. I really appreciate it. I'm a fan of the show, and yeah, I thanks for having me.